Welcome to the How to Be Awesome at Your Job podcast, the show where brilliant professionals share how to sharpen the universal skills required to flourish at work. Enjoy more career fun, wins, meaning, and money with your host, Pete Makaitis.
Hello, and thanks so much for joining us here for episode 353 with Lyz Cooper. This one's all about how music impacts your mind and your productivity and your state and how to use that to your advantage. You'll learn the two types of music that energize and soothe, why it's good to break up focused work with sound breaks, and how to manipulate sound to get in the zone. So if you want to take a look at the show notes, the transcripts, or the links to items we've referenced, you'll find that over at awesomeatyourjob.com/F353. And while at awesomeatyourjob.com, I encourage you to check out some of our cool stuff. One cool thing I'd point you to is the 10 Days to Winning at Work email course, which has 10 bite-sized lessons that have been shown to slash over 80 minutes of waste per person per week on out of there. So you can get home early or do more cool, fun work. And that's the 10 Days to Winning at Work email course at awesomeatyourjob.com. Now, here's Lyz's story. Lyz is an award-winning entrepreneur and author who's been working in the holistic health field for 33 years and with therapeutic sound since 1994. Lyz has developed a range of techniques which have been shown to help improve health and well-being using therapeutic sound and music, and is considered to be one of the thought leaders in the field of therapeutic sound today. Big thanks to Lyz for sharing her wisdom with us, and big thanks to our sponsors. Check them out. Here is Lyz. Lyz, thanks so much for joining us here on the How to Be Awesome at Your Job podcast.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Pete.
Well, one fun thing I learned about you is that you keep not only chickens, but a rare breed of fluffy chickens. What's the story here?
Well, yes. I to be honest, I didn't actually know this about them before I chose them. I just loved the look of them. I decided I wanted to keep some pets at home, and they are really just pets. They're not chickens that we keep for the eggs, because we eat a lot of eggs, but it's because I just wanted to have some companions. And I just fell in love with these fluffy chickens when I went to the chicken breeder. And then I found out about them later, and that they were apparently discovered by Marco Polo as he went on his adventures in China. They have black bones and blue skin.
No kidding.
And they're fluffy. They don't have, they're obviously it's feathers, but it looks like fluff. And they're called silkies, and they're very sweet, and they're very good. They don't lay very big eggs. They're only little bantam chickens, but they're very, very sweet natured, and they're very funny. And when they all strike up a chorus of clucking, which they do several times a day, they like to celebrate when one of them's laid an egg. they all get together in this chorus of clucking, which always makes me laugh. So if I've had a heavy day at work, or I'm in the middle of a very heady project or something, they'll always bring some sonic sunshine to my day.
Well, that's great fun. Thank you. And it's funny, we're about to talk about you've founded the British Academy of Sound Therapy. Who'd have thought that the fluffy chickens would be a form of sound therapy for you? But there they are. What is this organization all about?
Well, the British Academy of Sound Therapy was an organization that I founded back in the year 2000, actually, right on the millennium. And it was a culmination of many years of looking into therapeutic sound. But I got very ill in the early 90s. I was in a very, very sort of high pressured job in advertising, and I burnt out. I got very sick. I had chronic fatigue syndrome and so on. And I started listening to music and therapeutic sound. So what I mean by that is tonal, sort of ancient music, if you like, which focuses a lot on tone, which I'm sure we'll get to talk about a bit later. And basically, I couldn't believe how much better I felt after I'd listened to this music. So I set about traveling the world and finding out how many Indigenous people used sound and music for healing. And after many years of research, I then decided that I developed some techniques and I wanted to actually teach those to others. So the British Academy of Sound Therapy was formed.
That's cool. That's cool. And so I do want to talk about tone and all the impact that the music has on us in terms of, and health and an organism as an organism, and particularly in sort of mood or state, and how it relates to productivity and being awesome at your job. And so the way I discovered you was a variety of articles talking about the most relaxing song in the world. And I thought, whoa, that is fascinating. And it wasn't hype. There were actually studies in which they pitted this song against others, and it sort of came out on top, Smoking, Anya, and all the others that you might associate with supreme relaxation, in a song with like biochemical or maybe clinical, I should say, heart rate, like type indicators. So I thought that was an amazing story. I won't steal your thunder. Can you tell us, how did the song Weightless by Marconi Union come about, and what was your role in making it come to life?
I was contacted by an advertising agency that was doing some work for Radox Spa. I don't know whether you have Radox there, but they're a bath product company. And they said that they were doing a campaign which was all about creating the most relaxing environment at home. So when you put your bubbles in your bath, you put on some lovely music and you can just drift away. And so we had a very interesting meeting, and they said that they would like to have a professional sound therapist consult, and work in collaboration with Marconi Union, which we did. And so I have something which I call my sonic vitamins. Because of the way the brain has evolved over millions of years, we respond to different sounds in different ways. And there's a lot more research now that's being done about this. But basically, that's one of the things I do is compose music, which I call consciously designed music, and it's designed specifically to work on different areas of the mind, body, and emotions. And so we worked. Marconi Union and I worked together. I put the sonic vitamins into the piece, and so it's a little bit like crafting clay in a way. If you imagine a piece of clay on a potter's wheel, Marconi Union provided the music, and then I shaped it into the Weightless, which was basically by saying, okay, well, we need to do this here, and we need to put that in there, and we need to have a heartbeat that slows down as we go throughout the piece, and it was tested, as you quite rightly said, and against the other tracks, and found to be a lot more relaxing. In fact, everybody was surprised at the results of the data. And whenever I went, because the media got hold of it, and whenever I was invited to go on BBC Radio or any international radio stations, they had to give a warning before they played it to say, if you're driving your car or operating heavy machinery, sort of pull over now or step away from what you're doing. I think, to be honest, just for a minute's clip, it wouldn't have done anything. But certainly if you hear the whole piece, it will lull you into this lovely, relaxed state.
Yeah, well, and that's just great for publicity and brand and impact. It's like, I've heard that there have been some legendary copywriting pieces associated with this, warning, this may not be safe because it's so intensely effective, which is like, whoa, you got my attention. Now I'm really intrigued. What's this all about? And so that's pretty cool. I think that probably really contributed to the success of it. So these sonic vitamins, as you say, what are some of the elements or ingredients that we might think about when it comes to, the music we select and the impact that it has? So you mentioned tone. You mentioned a couple particular things that you wove into the song Weightless. What are kind of some of the if this then that cause and effect, sound and body mood reactions that we can count on?
Well, I call it sonic caffeine and sonic hot chocolate. It's very, there's two sort of very simple ways that you can energize or relax yourself using tone or pieces of music and those sonic vitamins. So, for example, I mentioned earlier that the brain has evolved, over millennia to respond to certain sounds in certain ways. And a lot of these are based on very nature sounds, really. So, for example, an animal call, a high-pitched animal alarm call, or or a shriek, a human shriek, will actually stimulate the release of adrenaline in the system. And that's exactly why our alarms, the alarm that may get you up in the morning, or a car alarm, is going to be a very high pitch, sudden sound. And it's based on the fact that we needed to survive, so we needed to be able to, one, hear these signals, these sounds from over long distances, and two, be able to react to them very quickly. So any piece of music which has a high pitch, or even if it's an ascending pitch, so a fast ascending pitch, will be stimulating. So my sonic caffeine is to put on any piece of music which has fairly high pitches in it, or one of the things that I'm often found doing just before a meeting, if I need to use the grey matter, is to actually sing a tone in a high pitch for a minute or two, just to get the brain cells going. So if you're about to go into a meeting or an exam, it's really good, and a few minutes you'll be buzzing.
So when you sing the tone in a high pitch, is it just constant, or could you give us a demonstration?
Oh goodness, you got me now. So basically, actually, we could do this together, Pete. Are you up for it?
Oh, all right, let's do it.
So if you pop your hand on your head right now, and if you were just to say E, like an E. Okay. Can you feel your hand buzzing?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So if you go can you feel the difference?
Huh. So it's different, but I don't know how to say it. They're both vibrating, but they're vibrating differently.
Yeah. So the E sound will vibrate your head more than the R sound. And that's because the way that the mouth and the tongue are placed when you sing, when you make that sound, actually literally stimulates the head. So that massage that you're giving yourself, coupled with the high sound, actually helps to improve concentration. So I'll just do a demonstration. We didn't use a very high pitch note there. But so, for example, I will go and I'll continue that for as long as I can, take in one breath, and I'll do that maybe for about a minute, and that will really get you buzzing.
No kidding. Well, that's cool. And I'm thinking, well, it's pretty cool that I sort of put this money into renovating the enclosed porch. That's my office with the soundproofing. So that others can't hear as well. I guess it might be a little trickier. Is there a particular volume that you need to be at in order to be effective? Because I'm thinking folks are saying, I can't do this in my office. That's nuts. Or maybe there's a little room, or you sort of like phone booth style, mini conference rooms that can be retreated into. But is there a minimum threshold of volume to make it count? Not
really. I mean, obviously, it's got to be fairly audible. You couldn't really do a silent. You can really do it without the sound. But why not get everybody in the boardroom doing it? How much fun would that be?
Of all the things that motivational speakers have made me do, I mean, this is not the weirdest. And it's got some science behind it. So I can see that working in certain contexts. Sure. Cool. So so that's one approach, is that you're singing that, and then alternatively you could be listening to that sort of thing, the high pitch sudden sound or fast ascending pitches are providing that kind of adrenaline stimulus. Could you maybe give us some examples of popular tracks or songs that include some of these features?
Yeah, I mean, a really good any sort of dance music that has that ascending pitch, and tempo is really important as well. So it's not just the pitch of the sound, it's also the beat. So you want to be looking at around about 120 beats per minute, which is about twice the resting heart rate.
Okay, so if it were like 180, that's just like you could have too much of a good thing? But
well, you could. I mean, I think there's always too much of a good thing, but I think that if you can overdo it, but I don't think that you're not going to explode or anything. Uh-huh. So it's not dangerous, but there's a reason why modern dance music is so really gets you going. It's very hard not to sort of bob your head or tap or stamp your feet to a piece of rousing music. So anything that gets you going in terms of gets you moving, stimulates you is a good track to use. One of the tracks that I use when I'm training my students is Locked Out of Heaven by Bruno Mars. I don't know whether you know that particular track, but it rises and falls. So it encourages something called expectation. It's like a little kind of massage for the senses. So if you ever need to wake up or stimulate your brain, anything that is like that, where there's a pitch that rises up and up and up and up, and then it might fall down, the pitch might fall down again, is good. So I would say any dance music really will certainly do the trick.
It's funny as you mentioned that, I'm thinking now, I was at a wedding recently. Shout out to Lawrence and Katie Joy. Congratulations, guys. And the playlist was superb in terms of they just picked things that got people going. And one song that kind of surprised me, because you don't hear it on a lot of wedding playlists in my experience, it was by Celine Dion, I Drove All Night. And I'm thinking that we've got that up tempo. And then even I'm not going to sing it well, but I drove all night, right. She's going high and kind of varying it a little bit there. And sure enough, even though this isn't a super popular song these days, as far as I've observed, it really did get the people going.
Exactly. And that's what it's, I mean, okay, it's a different kind of thrill. I mean, I earlier on, I used the example of car alarms and fire alarms to get the adrenaline going. It's a different sort of thrill, but it's still going to arouse the system. It's certainly not my Sonic hot chocolate, which is completely the opposite, where we're actually lulling the system into a more relaxed state.
Mm-hmm. But I want to talk about that in a second. So any other sort of top recommendations? Locked Out of Heaven by Bruno Mars is one of them that's doing it well. Anything else that is just killer when it comes to the stimulation?
Oh, goodness, you got me now. Let me think. Now, what would I use? I mean, I tend to use, what was that one by? There's one by Prodigy, actually, which is not everybody's cup of tea, but it's called Breathe.
Oh, are you kidding me? What are the odds? Well, here's a crazy story. I thought you might say that because I think that's the only song I can identify, actually, by Prodigy. Because when I was in college, I did a modern dance class, which was kind of random, but filling out the credit hours to keep my scholarship. And that was the song we did in our final performance. And it's funny, I couldn't put my finger on it, but just something about that song just kind of made me feel something. And I was like, yeah, I was like, so what are the ingredients there? I can't, I think of that as being more kind of like, percussion bassy in terms of what's distinctive about that one.
It is. Now that's an interesting one, because you've got the bass that comes in very strongly. So you're feeling that in the body. But you've also got this very high, it almost sounds like a whip crack sound that goes on throughout the piece. It's like a little hook. So whilst you've got the bass that drives the body, so it's very physical, the beat is actually quite fast as well. And then you've got this high pitch sort of whip cracking sound that goes throughout the piece that's very exciting to the system. So so yeah, I mean, it is, but the thing is, one of the things that I find really fascinating is, whilst there is a rule of thumb, that we know that when with music psychology and so on, there are general rules of thumb, there's always going to be people that find their own pieces of music that are quite different, so that because of the way we're programmed, we will respond to high pitch sounds be aroused by them. Somebody might have a particular track they like, which is quite deep in tone, but because of the association that they have with that piece, then it has the effect of actually stimulating.
Right.
If you see what I mean?
Like certain memories and such.
That's it. Yeah. So it's you can't. This isn't sort of something that is. It's not mind controlling or overriding. If you know what I mean. It's just based on the natural way our brains evolved, but. You've also got to factor in in your childhood, you went to parties a lot and they played a particular track and everybody got up and danced around like mad things, but it wasn't particularly high, but it would probably still get you high, if you like.
Certainly. And I'm wondering now, so we had a previous guest, Dan McGinn, he wrote a book called Psyched Up and was talking about sort of performance rituals and stuff. Or pre-performance rituals. And you said when it comes to music, one of the most cited songs for the pump up is Eye of the Tiger I'm thinking about the Rocky theme. Have you observed that in your research, or do you think there's anything sort of special about this tune that seems to do it, or is it mostly just about associations? People love the Rocky movie, and there it is.
Well, do you know, I think that's a really good example. I haven't used that particular piece in my research, but it's still fairly high pitch.
That's right.
For a man to sing. Yeah, exactly. And of course, you've got that iconic scene in the Rocky movie. So anybody that's seen that movie is immediately going to be there, I think, in their minds. So yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? The sort of the way we're driven by music, and it's very it's an ancient primal thing.
Mm-hmm. Certainly. Well, let's talk about the hot chocolate here. If we're, I guess, feeling anxious, overwhelmed, stressed, what are some of the key ingredients and examples of things that are soothing?
So Sonic Hot Chocolate is perfect for, as you quite rightly said, just calming the system down. So I always think about, when I think about Sonic Hot Chocolate, Tibetan monks sitting somewhere on a mountain in a temple, singing Om. And if you think about that, you very rarely ever hear them singing Om. You're not going to hear a high pitch. You're going to hear a beautiful low Om. This beautiful kind of silky sound that sort of cuddles you. And that is because low tones relax the system. So if there's a low and slow, so fast and high to stimulate, low and slow to relax. So if you're thinking about nice sort of slow tempo tracks, anything that's more tonal rather than rhythmic is also good.
And can you define that tonal rather than rhythmic? So with rhythmic, I'm thinking beats, drums, percussion, and tonal. That's you just mean not that?
Yeah. So more tonal than when I think something that doesn't have a driving rhythm. Okay. So if it's a slightly more abstract rhythm based or slightly more sort of swingy rather than boom, boom, boom. That your body is going to be driven by. You're going to be held in a less relaxed state if you're being driven by a very rhythmic piece. So that's where your sort of more Enya type pieces come in. They're more drifty. They're slightly more ethereal in nature. But it could even just be slow songs. Mrs. Jones, Me and Mrs. Jones, for example, is that kind of thing. If you want some nice, gentle soul music, or even sound if you really want to, some people find sort of therapeutic sound tracks slightly boring to the ears, so if you're looking at just Himalayan bowls or monks chanting, I think it's a lot more popular now than it certainly was when I started working in sound therapy, but some people find that difficult to listen to over periods of time. So again, I would say just put a playlist together that really suits your palette, but bearing in mind those lovely low and long tonal sounds that don't have a driving rhythm.
All right. And so for examples there, we mentioned Enya, and now I'm thinking about, so monks chanting. I've got a couple monks chatting Latin or tunes, or so that's fun. And then what else would you recommend in this category?
Well, I mean, it like I say, it depends on taste. So if you were into sort of gentle Indian music, Asian music playing, maybe some gentle, something again abstract and not too rhythmic in nature. So I've got a track actually, which you're very welcome to tell your listeners about if they're interested. It's a brand new track that I'm working on right now, which is part of a consciously designed music program I'm working on called Lyz Sonics. And I can give you the website if people want to download an example. Yeah. So it's www.lyzsonics.com. And when you get onto that page, you'll be given you can just click on and download the track, and it's actually a part of a piece called Cosmic, and it has been designed specifically for relaxation. So it's kind of taking Weightless a step further, because obviously Weightless was a collaboration between myself and Marconi Union, and this is my own composition. So I'd love to hear what people think of it.
Oh, cool. Thank you. That's good. Well, and so now I'm thinking, all right, we've talked a bit about when you want to pump up the energy or bring down the energy. I'm wondering now just about being in a pleasant mood. So if you're just kind of in a funk, it's not like I'm tired. It's not like I'm stressed, but it's just like, this all sucks. Just a little grumpy funk. What's sort of the musical prescription for that situation?
Okay, so there's again two ways of approaching this. One way, something that I would do is think about association, because we spoke a little bit about Rocky and association. So first of all, think about all the good times that you've had and what music that you might use that draws on those good times, because psychologically it's good to have those memories. Now, if I was working with a client and I didn't actually have that experience to draw on, then I might prescribe a piece of music that is quite lyrical in nature. So something that rises and falls so for example, you couldn't get much better than Happy by Pharrell. That is just the perfect thing. Even if you take the lyrics away, which are kind of telling you to be happy, really. But just the way that music is, you've got a really nice, happy, skippy, trippy beat. It's fairly high and but not high that it's too sort of shrieky. It's light. So anything that's light and lyrical sounding is perfect for uplifting.
And when you say lyrical, you mean it has words, or what exactly does lyrical mean here?
Well, lyrical musically can be literally lyrics. So the lyrics that are uplifting, that have a meaning to you. But also lyrical in the musical sense is almost like, the actual sort of quintessential definition of lyrical music would be Irish music, for example. You've got that kind of kind of skippy. I'm skipping through the tulips and my day is lovely and everything's wonderful kind of music. But some people are going to find that, again, you've got to bring your taste into it. So I'm not suggesting that everybody listens to Irish music unless you love it, but find that lyrical nature, the skippy nature within the sort of genre of music that you like particularly.
Well, that's nice. And can you speak to maybe another example or two beyond Happy and some of these Irish pieces?
Goodness, let me think. I'm trying to think about what I might use for skipping. I might need a bit more time on that one, to be honest, Pete. I'd love to have got some playlists together for you.
Oh, sure. Well, hey, if you come up with them after the fact, we will totally link them with eager delight. So that would be appreciated.
Is that okay?
Oh, very much. Thank you. Yeah, what a treat.
Yeah, no, I'll put a couple together and think about it, because I probably need a couple of minutes to reflect on the best, more sort of contemporary pieces that people might know. But yeah, I'll whiz you an email.
Oh, great. Thank you. And any thoughts when it comes to, these assertions that, hey, Mozart or whatever will or classical music will make you smart? What's that about, and how can we use that to our advantage?
Well, there has been a fair bit of research on the so-called Mozart effect, and that research has actually been maybe criticised is a strong word. I mean, I think all research is always up for scrutiny, but there is no evidence, really, I think robust evidence that classical music is necessarily going to make you smart. In fact, the best way to exercise your brain is actually to improvise.
You mean like scoobity bop bop? You mean like jazz improv? What do you mean?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
Any
those people look dumb when they do it. No offense, jazz musicians. We're just teasing.
Well, when I studied music psychology, they actually fairly often drew on jazz as an example, because obviously jazz is the thing we think about when we think of improvisation. But there's been a fair amount of research where they've wired jazz musicians up to EEG machines, and it's actually you use a lot of high complex processing in the brain, very wide processing in the brain when you improvise. So but it doesn't have to be jazz. It can be just scatting around your kitchen, shooby-dooing everywhere, or get together with a group of friends and if you play an instrument, get together and play. That will exercise more of your brain. And in fact, there's talking of making you smarter. The Oliver Sacks actually was quoted saying that music is more widely distributed in the brain than any other activity we do. And a lot of research has been done with fMRI scans where they've put people, musicians and non-musicians, into fMRI and asked them either to actually play an instrument or to visualize playing an instrument. So it doesn't even matter if you're not actually playing the instrument, which is amazing. If you can just visualize playing, they put keyboard players into the fMRI, and there was very little difference in the areas of the brain that lit up when they were playing or just imagining that they were playing. But what they found is that there was so much of the brain that was actually involved when somebody was playing an instrument that it was a really good workout for the brain, and it accounts for why people, it explains why people who are even in the later stages of dementia, if they've played an instrument, they can still remember how to play it. And that's because there's enough information stored in lots of little pockets of the brain to enable them to remember how to piece together how to play that instrument, or perhaps remember a track from 50 years ago, and yet not be able to remember the faces of their loved ones, And so I would say improvise, play an instrument. Imagine you're playing an instrument and you'll stay clever.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. And speaking of staying clever, I'd love to get your take on what's some good music to listen to at work if you're about to hunker down for a good hour and a half, focused, crank out some smart work with your computer time. What would you recommend for the background musical ambiance in this context?
Well, what I would recommend is actually a brain break. So I noticed that there was an article that you sent me actually from a piece that was done by Jabra or on behalf of Jabra. And I was in a conversation with them a couple of years ago, and we were looking at doing a piece based on productivity at work. And basically the ideal cycle is about 90 minutes of productivity and about 10 to 20 minutes of brain break time. So it's almost like, a screensaver for your brain. So rather than listening to music while you're working, which of course you can do, a lot of people do, but I would have your a timer set. So if you've got a smartwatch or whatever, or phone, for 90 minutes. And then after that 90 minutes is actually plug in something like the Life Sonics track or a relaxation track that's designed to take you into a brain cycle mode. So Weightless, for example, was written for that purpose. And so that is going to enable your brain to go into a kind of almost like a refreshing mode. And that will prevent burnout and it will prevent brain fatigue. And so that's more essential than actually than trying to push through it, if you like, by playing music that's going to keep you going.
Oh, that's good. And so using the music for relaxation for the brain break is a great move. And I guess I'm thinking not so much about pushing through it or going longer, but it's like, if we are going to do 60 or 90 minutes of continuous work and you'd like something to help you, is there any kind of music that will help facilitate that flow state in terms of, all right, I'm in the groove, I'm just moving along and I'm not going to get caught up in an email or a distraction or whatever. Is there any kind of musical ingredients that can aid in making that happen?
So do you mean sort of focused concentration, or is it more about not being distracted from something else, or what's?
Yeah, I'm thinking focused concentration, like in my dream world, and maybe I'm asking too much, but it's like those moments in which you sit down and to do some work and wow, it just poured out of your mind and fingertips into the keyboard. And you were so impressed with how effortlessly you were able to produce this writing or document or PowerPoint deck or creative output from, because you were just in a real nice, groove of kind of flow and making it happen. So I guess part of it has to do with, not getting distracted by other things. But it's also, I think, kind of being in that place where you're neither overstimulated and worried and anxious and freaking out about it, and also neither understimulated in terms of, oh, I'm kind of sleepy, groggy, and bored.
This is interesting, isn't it? Because I think that there's a couple of things here which I think is really important, but also coming to mind is the importance for silence. And one of the things I'm often saying to my students is that silence is also really important. It's something we very rarely allow ourselves the luxury of, real silence. And some people actually find certain types of music quite distracting. You can get noise cancelling headphones, for example, which if you find music distracting or music takes you away from flow, is you might want to try some silence. Now, however, some people find that certain music helps with their concentration and gets them into a flow state. And there is actually something called flow theory, which is where as you quite rightly said, the brain just you go into this almost no time zone, and you're just kind of off, and the creativity is flowing. And this is something that we work with at the British Academy of Sound Therapy, and we also incorporate silence into it as well. So it's sound and silence. And what we do is we use the tonal sounds, or if people don't like tonal sounds, very ambient music. So again, it's just in the background. You'll need to play with the volume so that it's not too invasive. And it will start to, after a while, it starts to put you into, it's almost an altered state of consciousness, but it's different from zoning out completely. You're in that flow state. But we also stop for a while when we're playing. We'll stop at the end of maybe a 5 or 10 minute sequence, and it will just fade into silence. And then the music comes back up gently out of that silence. So it's not pervading, it's not invading your consciousness, but just allowing you to stay in that flow. So that might be something that people want to actually try, is having some very sort of ambient background music. So and just to then feel when it's at the right volume for them, and just allow it to play almost in the background, almost imperceptibly, but also to try silence.
Mm-hmm. And so how can we access this ambient or tonal stuff that strategically comes in and out? Where do we find that?
Well, I can actually give you a sound bath recording, if that would help.
Yes, thank you.
So that is actually something that we've got at the Academy. So I can, do I email that over to you?
Sure. Yes, thanks. And we can link it to, on the show notes, and that'll be great. Thank you.
No, you're very welcome. And I'd love to hear what people think of it. It's pure sound therapy. So there's not much music in this particular example, but it will give people a feel for that actual process of going into that flow state. I think that some people can go fairly deep with it. So it's a little bit like weightless. Some people have said to me that, they go very deep, almost into a deep meditation with it. And so, again, it's one of those things that, if you are, I wouldn't particularly listen to it while you were driving or something like that. It really is for when you're grounded, in and not out and about.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Well, Lyz, tell me anything else you want to make sure to mention before we shift gears and hear about some of your favorite things.
Goodness, what else? Well, obviously that people will be directed to the website. I've got a book called What is Sound Healing, which talks a little bit more about the science behind therapeutic sound. And there's lots of sort of little tips and things and things that people can try at home as well to bring some sound into their lives.
Awesome. All right. Well, now could you share with us a favorite quote, something you find inspiring?
My favorite quote is, "The universe is cosmic music resonating throughout hyperspace."
Thank you.
It's actually by a quantum physicist called Michio Kaku, and it was relating to string theory. But it was the opening quote for his book, and it really inspired me, the thought of these strings of energy that are sort of almost like cosmic music, just stretching through space.
And how about a favorite study or experiment or bit of research?
My favorite bit of research or study, goodness, I'm going to give myself a bit of a pat on the back there. My favorite bit of research at the moment is one that I'm very excited about, that's looking at sound-induced altered states of consciousness. And is basically a piece that we've been doing in conjunction with the University of Roehampton, and it's using a specific therapeutic sound program to help to take people into a very deep meditative state. And I remember I actually went to my local University of Portsmouth, when I was crunching the data, and we were putting the algorithms into the computer, and I needed help with doing it. And out the first sort of result came, and it sort of spat it out and said, and then the number was statistically significant. I thought, okay, right. And the next one, statistically significant, and so on and so on. And we actually got to the point where we thought perhaps we'd put the wrong algorithm into the computer, but we checked it, and it was we had so much statistical significance with it, and not being a great statistician, there's a word that's difficult to say at 8:30 at night, that I said to the doctor who was helping me, I said, what does this mean? And he said, go home and crack open a bottle of champagne. And I was completely blown away. And that particular piece has taken me to international conferences around the world talking about my work. And it has sort of far-reaching implications when it comes to taking therapeutic sound into the mainstream, so using it in hospitals and sort of mainstream healthcare settings. So yeah, that's the first. That was just an amazing moment for me, really, and so I hope I'm allowed to give myself a pat on the back. Thing.
And what's the title of the article? We'll link to the full text journal citation.
So it is called Sound Effects.
Oh, clever.
I know. I can give you the link, actually. I'll email you that, and people can have a look at it.
All right, thank you. And how about a favorite book?
My favorite book, the one I'm reading at the moment, is called Maps of Meaning, and it is how it's basically how the strength of human belief and throughout the years, and how belief has literally led us, well, through times of enlightenment, but also times of great difficulty. And one of the sort of the elements of the work that I do is also to help people to reframe life-limiting beliefs in a more positive way through music.
Beautiful, thank you. And how about a favorite tool?
Favorite tool?
Mm-hmm.
Goodness, what do you mean, like a hammer or a chisel?
It could be, if that's one of your favorites. It could be an intellectual tool as well.
Okay, goodness, let me think. So at the moment, I'm having both challenge and a positive challenge, as well as a frustrating challenge, with a new little mixing desk that I've got. I'm getting very geeky with my with that at the moment, and diving into all the different effects and things that it can do. So at this moment in time, that's both my favourite and my most frustrating tool. But if I was to absolutely pick a favourite, I would say that at the moment my iPad,
mm-hmm.
if that's allowed.
Oh, sure. And how about a favourite habit?
I think my favourite habit is catching myself out and listening to my inner voice when I have negative dialogue with myself, when I hear myself, and catching myself out is something that I like to do. If I can make myself laugh by catching myself out and say, oh, there you go again. There you go again in your, giving yourself a hard time about something and trying to laugh through it. Because I think if you can just take some of your dark thoughts and look at them through a humorous lens, then you can get over anything in life. And that's coming from the very dark times that I spoke about at the top of this interview. That's been something that I've learnt, and to the point at which some of my friends say to me, "Are you sure you're not mad at that? Mm-hmm. You should be. You should." Shouldn't you get mad at that? And I think to myself, goodness, in life there's a lot worse happening out there, that I think if you can turn things around in your head and make that a habit, then that's great.
Yeah, a particular thing that you say or share that seems to be quoted to you frequently, something you're known for saying?
Something I'm known for saying? Mm-hmm. That's interesting. That's exactly what people will say to me. I've got a habit of saying that's interesting. So when one of my students says to me, "Oh, Lyz, I'm never going to be able to do this." So if they're struggling with playing an instrument or something, and they say, "Lyz, I'm never going to be able to do this," I'll look at them and I'll say, "That's interesting," because there's a negative belief there, and so that's interesting. And the other thing is that true? Some of our beliefs, most of them actually, that are negative and hold us back in life, just are not true. and so often people will say to me, "Oh, I'm useless." Is that true? Really, you're really useless? What are you good at? You must be good at something. Well, yeah, I can ride a bike. Well, there you go. You're not useless, are you? I can bake a cake. That's two things that you're not useless at. And so I think if we sometimes put ourselves in the dock in a way and make a case for ourselves, almost defend ourselves against ourselves, our negative beliefs, then you can change your life. You can really transform yourself. And I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. And if folks want to learn more or get in touch, where should they go?
Well, they can go to the British Academy of Sound Therapy.com. That has more information about sound therapy and some of the research that we're doing. And they're welcome to go to lifesonics.com for the track. And if you want to email me directly, you can email me at info@lyzcooper.com. And it's Liz with a Y.
And do you have a final challenge or call to action for folks seeking to be awesome at their jobs?
I would say stay in the moment. And that sounds a bit cliche, I know, but everything is okay in the moment. If you're racing ahead, it's so easy to be in the future. So thinking about all the things I should be doing, all the things I shouldn't be doing, all the things that may happen to me. Being in the future makes us anxious because we cannot know what's in the future. So you're going to be in an anxious state. If you're in the past, you're worrying about all the things that have happened to you, all the things you've said or you've done or didn't say or didn't do. And that sets up, depression and anger and grief. So when we're in the moment and we're really reaching inside for that still point, then we are at peace.
Beautiful. Well, Liz, this has been so much fun. Thanks so much for taking the time and sharing the goods and sharing all the bonus, the tracks and music and goodies that we get to access. It's been a whole lot of fun.
Oh, I'm so glad, Pete. And thank you so much for having me on your show. It's been amazing. And I've had a lot of fun too.
This conversation was so much fun, digging into the different ways music will impact your mood and state and helping you get the job done. And particularly, I got to give a shout out once again to the song Weightless by Marconi Union. You can find it in the show notes, YouTube, Spotify, whatever's your style, your flavor to access the music. But give it a shot. It can really help you fall asleep or just de-stress, soothe in a hurry. So that's a pretty cool one. That's how I found Liz, and I'm so glad you joined us for the show. And again, if you want to check out the show notes, the transcript, the links to items we've referenced, and plenty of songs, you'll find that over at awesomeatyourjob.com/ep353. If you haven't already, I hope you'll push the subscribe button. You'll hear from our next guest. It's Jared Warren. He is talking about evening routines to get awesome sleep and awesome energy and have a rocking day the following day. Hope to catch you there. One sponsor to check out is Harvard Business Review. This brilliant magazine, published at hbr.org, is the leading destination for smart management thinking. Fun fact, HBR has been mentioned in 108 episodes of the show. That's because HBR has great stuff that comes up often. They've got explainer videos, podcasts, real-world case studies, and much more. I think of HBR each night that I put on my special orange glasses. Their article, Will Blue Light Glasses Improve Your Sleep?, revealed that those who wore them reported better sleep and a 7% improvement in work performance as compared to those who wore the sham glasses. So I cite HBR anytime anyone tells me that I look silly wearing them. Now, much of HBR's content is available for free when you sign up at their site. Subscriptions that get you unlimited content cost $10 a month. If you visit hbr.org/subscriptions and enter the promo code AWESOME, you can save 10% off of that subscription. Again, to save 10% off of your HBR subscription, go to www.hbr.org/subscriptions and enter the promo code AWESOME. Peace.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode. To get the most out of this conversation, visit awesomeatyourjob.com to find today's show notes, transcript, and infographic summary cheat sheet. For more entertaining professional skill sharpening, be sure to subscribe to catch the next episode of How to Be Awesome at Your Job.
This episode is brought to you in part by Purina. Purina is dedicated to creating richer lives for pets and the people who love them. From helping older pets think like their younger selves to making cat ownership a possibility for more people than ever, Purina is helping pets thrive so they can live long, healthy, and happy lives. Purina has you covered for all your furry friends' needs, whether they meow or bark. From litter to treats to their best-in-class, nutrient-packed food with taste your pets will love, Purina's got your back at every stage of your pet's life. Your pet gives you the joy of the spring sunshine all year round. So today and every day, care for your pet with Purina. Your pet is Purina's passion. To learn more, head to Amazon.com/Purina.